When a man takes the time, the patience, and the intention to focus on his woman's pleasure, especially through something as intimate as oral sex, it speaks volumes about who he is at his core. It shows the depth of his emotional maturity in ways that words alone could never capture. Because let's be honest, any man can talk about how much he loves or desires a woman. Any man can make promises about wanting to make her happy. But a man who truly makes the effort, who puts her needs and her satisfaction at the forefront, is showing you that he understands what it means to give without conditions. Emotional maturity in a man means he's not just caught up in what he wants. He's not rushing through intimacy, treating it like something that's only about his release or his pleasure. Instead, he's present, he's tuned in, he's paying attention to what makes his partner feel good. And when he chooses to pleasure a woman in a way that's purely about her, whether it's through kissing, licking, or any other form of touch, he's showing that he can set aside his own ego. He can slow down enough to actually listen, not just to her words, but to her body. And here's where it gets deeper. A man who prioritizes a woman's pleasure shows that he understands intimacy is not about performance. It's not about ticking off boxes or acting out something he saw somewhere. It's about connection. It's about being so secure in himself that he doesn't feel the need to dominate or control every moment in the bedroom. Instead, he lets himself be vulnerable because, let's face it, it takes real security for a man to put himself in that position. It takes a certain level of confidence to say, right now, it's all about you, your happiness, your satisfaction. You see, emotional maturity means a man is capable of empathy. He can step outside of himself long enough to see what his partner feels. He's not so focused on his own needs that he misses hers. And when he chooses to go down on a woman, to really take his time and show care and attention, that's a man who understands that intimacy is a two-way street. It's about give and take, yes, but sometimes it's about giving without taking, about finding joy in the act of making your partner feel good. Another thing that stands out about these men is that they don't do it out of obligation. They don't do it because they're trying to prove a point, or because they expect something in return. They do it because they want to, because they genuinely enjoy seeing their woman in pleasure, watching her body respond, hearing the sounds of her satisfaction. And that speaks to a depth of character that goes beyond the bedroom. That same selflessness, that same attention to detail, often shows up in other areas of life too. Think about it. A man who cares about your pleasure in the most intimate moments is probably the same man who cares about your happiness outside the bedroom. He's thoughtful, he listens, he notices the little things that matter to you. And that's what emotional maturity looks like. It's a consistency between how he treats you in private and how he treats you in the rest of your relationship. What makes this even more powerful is that these men don't see their woman's pleasure as a threat to their own masculinity. In fact, they see it as a reflection of it. They understand that being a good lover isn't about how quickly they can satisfy themselves, but about how deeply they can satisfy their partner. And that's what makes them stand out. That's what makes them the most emotionally mature. These men know that pleasure is not just physical. It's emotional, it's psychological, and it's spiritual. And by choosing to focus on their partner's needs first, they create a space where trust can flourish, where the woman feels safe, cherished, and seen. And that's what true intimacy is about. It's not just about what happens between the sheets. It's about the message it sends, the message that says, I'm here with you. I see you. I want to make you feel good because your happiness matters to me. And when a man gives that message through his actions, without needing to say a word, it stays with you. It builds a bond that is hard to break. So when we say that men who prioritize a woman's pleasure, especially in such a vulnerable, giving way, are the most emotionally mature, it's because they show us they are secure enough to give. They show us they have the patience to explore, the empathy to listen, and the wisdom to know that true satisfaction comes from giving as much as it does from receiving. And that, ladies, is a man worth appreciating, When we think about intimacy, a lot of people focus on the physical. They think about touch, about attraction, about the act itself. But true intimacy, the kind that keeps relationships alive and thriving, is built on something much deeper. It's built on connection, on trust, on the feeling that two people can come together in a way that feels safe, real, and honest. And one of the ways this bond is strengthened is through acts of care that go beyond the surface, acts like oral intimacy, where a man shows that he's willing to slow down, to be present, and to focus entirely on his partner's pleasure. When a man chooses to pleasure a woman this way, what he's really doing is saying, without words, I see you, I'm here for you, I want to give you something, not because I expect anything in return, but because your happiness and satisfaction mean something to me. That's powerful, because in that moment, it's not about performance. It's not about ego. It's not about him proving how good he is. It's about creating a space where his partner can feel free to let go, to enjoy, to receive. And that's where the bond begins to deepen. When a woman feels that her partner is truly attentive to her, that he's tuned into what she likes, what makes her feel good, what makes her feel desired, it creates a layer of emotional safety that goes beyond words. She knows she can trust him. She knows she can be vulnerable with him because he's not rushing through, he's not distracted, and he's not focused on himself. He's focused on her. In those moments, something shifts. The act itself becomes more than just physical pleasure. It becomes a way of communicating care, a way of showing that he is willing to put in the effort, to pay attention, to learn her body, and to respond to what she needs. And that kind of attentiveness strengthens the emotional connection between two people. It helps build a foundation of trust where both partners feel safe being open, honest, and real with each other. It's also important to understand that this kind of intimacy requires vulnerability on both sides. For a woman to truly enjoy and receive that pleasure, she has to let go. She has to feel that she can trust her partner, that she doesn't have to hold back or pretend. And when a man creates that space for her, when he gives her permission to just be, to just feel, to just enjoy, it brings them closer in a way that words never could. And for the man, there's a vulnerability in giving that kind of attention too, because he's not just taking. He's not just focused on his own pleasure. He's stepping into a space where he is completely focused on giving. And that kind of giving, when it's genuine, comes from a place of emotional openness, from a place of security. And when both partners are open like that, when they meet each other in that space of giving and receiving, that's when the emotional bond deepens. That's when intimacy moves beyond the physical and becomes something spiritual, something that connects two souls on a deeper level. Let's be real, anyone can have sex, but not everyone knows how to build intimacy. Not everyone knows how to create a connection that leaves both people feeling fulfilled, satisfied, and seen. But when a man takes his time, when he focuses on his partner's pleasure, when he gives without expecting, when he listens and responds and cares, he's doing more than just giving physical pleasure. He's saying, I value you, I respect you, I want to see you happy. And that message stays with a woman long after the moment is over. That kind of intimacy builds trust outside the bedroom too. It shows up in small ways, in how you communicate, in how you solve problems together, in how you support each other through life's ups and downs. Because when a woman knows that her partner truly cares about her needs, that he's willing to put her first sometimes, that he listens, she feels safer to open up in all areas of the relationship. And that's what keeps couples strong. That's what helps love last. So, it's never just about the act itself. It's about what the act represents. It represents a man who is willing to give, to connect, to care. It represents two people who are willing to be vulnerable with each other. And that's what builds the kind of bond that stands the test of time. That's what creates a relationship where both people feel loved, valued, and deeply connected. In the end, the physical pleasure is beautiful, yes, but the real gift is in the connection it creates, the way it brings two hearts closer, the the way it deepens the trust, the way it reminds you both that true intimacy is about more than just bodies coming together. It's about souls meeting in a space of care, respect, and love. And that's something worth celebrating. There's something truly powerful about a man who can please his woman without fear, without hesitation, and without shame. A man who chooses to focus on her pleasure, especially in a way that requires him to give fully of himself, is a man who is deeply confident. He's secure in who he is. He doesn't need to prove his masculinity to anyone because he already knows who he is at his core. He knows that masculinity isn't defined by how much he takes or how much he dominates. It's defined by his ability to give, to care, and to connect without feeling like any of that takes away from his strength. When a man chooses to give pleasure through something like oral intimacy, it shows that he's not limited by the outdated ideas of what makes a man manly. He's not worried about the opinions of the world. He's not worried about looking weak. He's not afraid of being judged for taking his time, for focusing on his partner's needs, or for doing what brings her joy. That's because he understands that real strength comes from security within. A man who is confident in himself doesn't need to seek validation from anyone else. His actions are guided by his own values, his own understanding of love, and his own desire to make his woman feel good. Think about it for a moment. It takes a certain kind of man to set aside his own wants in a moment of intimacy and say, "This is about you right now. I want to give to you. I want to see you happy." That kind of man is not operating from insecurity. He's not thinking about what he looks like. He's not caught up in whether or not he's meeting some societal standard of what a man is supposed to be. He's present, he's focused, and that focus comes from knowing that giving pleasure to his woman only adds to his strength. It doesn't take away from it. There are men out there who shy away from this kind of intimacy because they fear it will make them seem less masculine. They think that being in control all the time, being the one who takes, being the one who receives, is what makes them powerful. But the truth is, power isn't about control. Power is about presence. Power is about generosity. And the most powerful men are the ones who understand that they don't lose anything by giving pleasure to their partner. In fact, they gain something even greater: the respect, the trust, and the deep connection of the woman they love. A man who is confident enough to please his woman in this way also shows that he's comfortable with vulnerability. Because yes, it takes vulnerability to put yourself in a position where your entire focus is on someone else's pleasure. It takes vulnerability to explore, to listen, to adjust, to learn what makes her feel good. But that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage. It's the kind of courage that comes from knowing that your masculinity isn't fragile, that your worth as a man isn't tied to outdated ideas or shallow performances, and women can feel this. A woman knows when her partner is confident. She knows when he's with her not because he's trying to prove something, but because he genuinely wants to share that moment of intimacy. She can sense when he's there because he wants to connect, because he enjoys giving her pleasure, because he's secure enough to focus on her without needing anything in return right away. And that makes her feel safe. It makes her feel desired in a way that goes beyond the physical. It touches something deeper. When a man embraces this role, he also opens the door to a more fulfilling relationship, because that kind of confidence allows him to be honest, to be open, to communicate without fear. It allows him to show up as his full self, without the need for masks or pretenses, and in doing so, he invites his partner to do the same. The intimacy that flows from that space is real, it's raw, it's beautiful. So, when we talk about men who give this kind of pleasure being confident and secure in their masculinity, it's because their actions reflect a deeper truth. They know that masculinity isn't something that can be taken away by caring for their partner. They know that strength isn't about dominance, it's about the courage to love fully, to give generously, and to connect deeply. And that is what makes them truly powerful. In the end, it's not about the act alone, it's about what the act reveals. A man who takes pride in pleasing his woman shows that he's free from the chains of insecurity. He shows that he understands real intimacy. And he shows that he's not afraid to give, because he knows that in giving, he only grows stronger. That is confidence, that is security, and that is the kind of man every woman deserves. There's something truly remarkable about a man who gives without keeping score. A man who enters the most intimate moments not thinking, "What's in this for me?" but instead asking, "How can I make this moment beautiful for her?" That kind of man stands out because generosity in love is rare. We live in a world where so much of intimacy has been reduced to transactions, where people think about what they're getting rather than what they're giving. But the man who takes his time to focus on his partner's pleasure, especially in such a personal, vulnerable way, shows that he understands what real love looks like. When a man chooses to focus on pleasuring a woman, especially through acts that are all about her and her alone, what he's really doing is demonstrating generosity of spirit. He's showing that love at its purest is about giving joy. It's about wanting to see your partner glow, wanting to hear her breath quicken, wanting to watch her lose herself in a moment of bliss that you helped create. And the most beautiful part, he does it not because he's trying to gain anything, not because he expects anything back right away, but because her pleasure is his reward. That kind of selflessness reveals so much about a man's character, because, let's be honest, anyone can take. That's easy. Taking doesn't require thought, it doesn't require effort, but to give fully, to give with patience, to give with care, that takes heart. That takes a man who isn't afraid to put his partner's happiness above his own in that moment. And that's the mark of a generous lover. What makes this generosity even more meaningful is that it builds trust. A woman can feel when a man is truly giving from a place of love rather than obligation. She can feel when he's present, when he's focused on her, when his only intention is to bring her joy. And in that space, she lets go, she softens, she opens herself up to him because she knows she's safe in his hands. That's what generosity creates. It creates a bond that goes beyond the physical. It creates emotional safety, and with that safety comes deeper connection, deeper intimacy, and deeper love. A selfless man in the bedroom is often a selfless man outside of it too, because true generosity isn't something you can fake in one part of life. It shows up everywhere. The man who gives with his heart in intimacy is likely the same man who notices the small things that make his partner smile. He's the one who listens, who remembers, who shows up when it matters, who does the little things that say, "I see you, I care about you, I'm here for you." And that kind of man, he creates a relationship that feels safe, warm, and fulfilling. It's also important to see that generosity in love doesn't mean weakness. In fact, it takes strength to be that kind of man. It takes strength to give freely without keeping score. It takes strength to be patient, to listen, to care about someone else's needs just as much, if not more, than your own. And that strength builds a love that lasts, because at the end of the day, relationships aren't sustained by what we take from them. They're sustained by what we give, by how we show up for our partners, by how much of ourselves we're willing to offer without demanding something in return. And here's the truth. A man who pleases his woman with generosity in his heart doesn't just give her physical pleasure. He gives her a gift that stays with her long after the moment has passed. He gives her the gift of being seen, of being valued, of being loved in a way that feels genuine, tender, and true. That kind of pleasure leaves an imprint. It reminds her that she is worthy of being cherished. It reminds her that she deserves a love that gives, not just a love that takes. When a man approaches intimacy this way, he creates a cycle of generosity, because when a woman feels truly loved, truly satisfied, truly cared for, she gives back. Not because she has to, but because she wants to. Generosity inspires generosity. Selflessness inspires selflessness. And that's how couples build a connection that grows stronger with time. That's how they create a bond that can weather life's challenges, because at the core of their love is the simple, powerful truth that giving is what keeps love alive. So, when we say that a man who focuses on his partner's pleasure reflects selflessness and generosity, it's because his actions speak louder than any words ever could. He shows that love isn't about keeping track of what's fair or equal. It's about being willing to give, to care, to make your partner feel like the most important person in the world in that moment. And that, more than anything, is what makes him unforgettable. One of the most beautiful things about intimacy is the trust it builds when two people are truly present with each other. When a man chooses to focus entirely on his partner's pleasure, especially through an act as intimate and vulnerable as oral, he's doing much more than simply giving physical satisfaction. He's unlocking a level of emotional safety that allows his partner to relax, to open up, and to experience a kind of connection that goes far beyond the physical. And in that space, something incredible happens. A woman feels like she can let down her guard. She feels like she can be her full, authentic self without fear of judgment or rejection. That's the power of trust. Trust isn't something that magically appears in a relationship. It's built slowly, moment by moment, through the choices we make and the ways we show up for each other. When a man gives his partner the gift of focused, selfless pleasure, what he's really saying is, you can trust me, you can let go, I'm here for you. And in that moment, she feels safe. Safe to feel, safe to express, safe to surrender to the moment without worrying about whether she's doing too much or too little, whether she looks a certain way or whether she needs to perform. She knows that she's with someone who sees her and accepts her exactly as she is. This level of trust opens the door to vulnerability, because true vulnerability only happens when we feel safe, when we feel that the person in front of us isn't going to take advantage of our openness, isn't going to use it against us, isn't going to disappear the moment we reveal our truest selves. And the man who focuses on giving pleasure in this way shows, through his actions, that he can be trusted with that vulnerability. He shows that he respects it, honors it, and treasures it. What makes this so powerful is that it creates a space where both partners can be real. There's no need for masks, no need for pretending, no need for holding back. And when a woman feels that she can be vulnerable in that way, it doesn't just make the physical experience better, it deepens the entire connection. She feels more willing to share her desires, to communicate openly, to explore without fear. She feels that she's with someone who wants to know her, not just on the surface, but at her core. And that kind of intimacy strengthens the relationship in ways that last long after the physical moment has passed. A man who understands this, who understands the link between pleasure, trust, and vulnerability, creates a relationship that feels like a safe haven. He becomes the person his partner turns to, not just for passion, but for comfort, for support, for honesty. Because if she can trust him with her body in her most vulnerable moments, she can trust him with her heart, with her fears, with her dreams. And that kind of trust is rare, it's precious, and it's something to be protected and nurtured. It's important to see that this kind of connection doesn't happen when a man rushes through intimacy or focuses only on his own needs. It happens when he's patient, when he listens, when he pays attention to what his partner enjoys, what makes her feel good, what helps her let go. It happens when he's not afraid to slow down, to tune in, to give without expecting anything in return. And in doing so, he creates a relationship dynamic where both people feel valued, seen, and safe. This trust also encourages honesty. A woman who feels safe being vulnerable with her partner is more likely to share her true thoughts and feelings, both inside and outside the bedroom. She's more likely to speak up about what she wants, about what she needs, about what's working and what isn't. And that honesty helps the relationship grow. It helps the couple navigate challenges together because they know they can communicate without fear of being misunderstood or rejected. In many ways, when a man focuses on pleasuring his partner in this deeply intimate way, he's building a foundation for a stronger, more lasting relationship. He's showing that intimacy isn't just about taking. It's about giving in a way that builds trust, that invites vulnerability, and that creates a bond where both people feel truly connected. That's the kind of love that endures, the kind of love that deepens over time, the kind of love that feels like home. And that's the real gift a man gives when he chooses to focus on his partner's pleasure, not just the physical sensations, but the emotional safety that allows her to open up, to trust, and to love more deeply. That's the kind of intimacy that changes everything. That's the kind of connection that every woman deserves to experience at least once in her lifetime. There is something truly unforgettable about a man who takes his time, who slows everything down, and focuses entirely on his partner's pleasure. A man who isn't in a rush, who isn't thinking about himself, but who gives his full attention to what his partner feels in that moment. When a man does this, when he chooses to give pleasure selflessly, he's doing more than just creating physical sensations. He's weaving a connection, building a bond that lingers in the heart and mind long after that moment is over. It's the kind of intimacy that stays with a woman, the kind she remembers not just because of what he did, but because of how he made her feel. Intimacy, at its core, is about connection. It's about how deeply two people can meet each other, not just in body but in soul. When a man takes the time to learn what brings his partner joy, when he listens to her breath, feels the rhythm of her body, and focuses on giving without taking, he creates a space where real emotional closeness can grow, and that closeness becomes a foundation not just for passion, but for love that is tender, resilient, and real. Men who approach intimacy this way aren't just creating fleeting moments of pleasure, they're creating memories. They're creating emotional imprints that stay with their partner. Because what a woman remembers most isn't just the touch itself. It's the way she felt seen, valued, and cared for. It's the safety of knowing she could let go, knowing she could be herself without fear, knowing that her partner was there with her fully in that moment. That emotional bond, that feeling of closeness, deepens with every act of selfless giving. And that's the beauty of it. The more a man gives in this way, the more he strengthens the connection between them. Because emotional bonds are built through presence, through generosity, through the small, intimate choices we make to put our partner's needs and desires first in those vulnerable moments. A man who understands this creates a relationship that feels rich, layered, and deeply satisfying, not just physically, but emotionally. What's so powerful about this kind of connection is that it builds over time. Each act of giving, each moment where the focus is on her pleasure, becomes like a thread in a tapestry, and before long, the bond between them is strong, beautiful, and impossible to forget. She remembers not just the physical sensations, but the emotional warmth, the tenderness, the care. And that makes her want to give back. That makes her want to nurture that connection, to pour into him the same love and attention he gives to her. This kind of intimacy also creates a deeper sense of trust. Because when a man takes his time, when he listens, when he explores with care and attention, he shows that he can be trusted with her vulnerability, and that trust leads to a greater emotional openness. She feels free to share more of herself, not just her body, but her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. And that openness deepens the bond even further. Men who approach intimacy this way often find that their relationships are more fulfilling. There's less tension, less resentment, less distance. Why? Because when two people are connected on that deep emotional level, they communicate better. They understand each other's needs. They want to meet those needs because they feel invested in each other's happiness. And all of that starts with the simple act of giving pleasure selflessly, with no expectation beyond seeing your partner happy. Another beautiful thing about this kind of intimacy is that it helps couples weather life's challenges together. Because when a relationship is built on deep emotional bonds, it becomes stronger, more resilient. The connection isn't just about the good times. It's about knowing that